Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we have interesting news to discuss surrounding Zelda, the Switch 2, and Nintendo overall. We're going to be touching on Chibi Robo, Pokemon Legends ZA, Dragon Drive, a big third-party game that could be on its way to Switch 2, an interesting update regarding the live-action Zelda movie, and perhaps some more hintings, towards the long-theorized and rumored The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake for Nintendo Switch 2, we presume. So all of this together I think will be leading to some interesting discussion today. So jumping right into things here, last night Nintendo posted this on Twitter. Say hello to Chibi Robo. Join him on his quest to restore order to the Sanderson house and save the world in Chibi Robo. Coming to Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classics on Nintendo Switch 2 for Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack members on August 21st. So, Chibi Robo is an interesting little weird adventure platformer that I myself never actually got a chance to play, but now it's going to be made available, and I'm looking forward to this. I remember looking at this game in Nintendo magazines and things like that back in the day when I was a kid, and just looking at the gameplay, it's clearly a weird, peculiar little adventure that Nintendo's putting out here for us. But I'm excited to finally give this one a try, and I imagine a lot of other Nintendo fans are going to feel similar. Now, perhaps in some more negative news, reviews have come out for Dragon Drive, and, well, the reviews overall are not extremely high compared to your typical Nintendo game. The score on Metacritic is a 62, which, is not that high. However, I will point out, this game is only $20 USD on the eShop. As they've been saying for months already, this game was never meant to be a big deal, but it is something, and when I played the Global Test Jam a few days ago, I actually enjoyed what I played. I think I'm probably going to pick this one up myself, but it is something that requires that you think about where you're placing your Joy-Cons, because you do have to play them as two different mice, so you have to think about the surface, and yeah, you're going to be burning some calories here. You may feel like it's a little bit of a workout, and there's kind of a high barrier of entry. It's not easy to sort out, but if you can sort it out, if you can figure out the right way to go about playing this game, and maybe if you're also into basketball, you don't necessarily have to be into basketball, but if you're into basketball like me, you perhaps may find it more enjoyable. I got a game-winning buzzer beater the other day, and it felt great when I was just rolling in with seconds climbing down, and I launched the ball right at the three-point line. We're down 2, and the buzzer goes off, everything slows down, and my shot goes in, and we win by 1. That was an epic moment. So for me, it seems like Dragon Drive is going to be a good time. However, let's take a look at some of the summaries that are being provided here of these different reviews for the game. So IGN Spain said this: Dragon Drive is a title that stands out for its love of different sports. The game encourages you to practice and be creative to score as many points as possible, rewarding you for every step of your learning process. It is lovingly designed, but its hardware prevents it from shining as brightly as it could in terms of control. Even so, I can't think of a better title to highlight the new Joy-Con 2 feature, the mouse controls. So that's a fairly positive review, but what you might notice here, that seems to be one of the most positive reviews of this game. All the others are a little bit more on the average side of things here. So looking at something that's more middle of the road here, Digital Trends, Dragon Drive feels like an excellent prototype more than a full package. The control scheme proves to be more than just a gimmick and makes the act of moving engaging. Combined with the twist that playing basketball in wheelchairs has on a familiar sport, the result is a very solid and enjoyable time. But with only that one mode to hang its hat on, I don't see Dragon Drive rising above a novelty. Now, I've seen there being different minigames and practices and such, but yeah, the core of the game is the wheelchair basketball. That's what it is. And again, it's also only $20, so I don't know why we should be looking at this as it should be a full package, but that's their opinion, so okay. And then looking at one of the lower scores here, WCCF Tech. Dragon Drive delivers some moments of frenetic multiplayer fun, but an inflexible and physically demanding control scheme, lack of personality, and dearth of content severely limits the game's long-term appeal. Drag and Drive could have been a solid addition to a larger Wii Sports style collection designed to show off the Switch 2's mouse functionality, but on its own, the game is far from a slam dunk purchase. Interesting opinions here. Not everyone's so high on this game. Seems a little unfortunate, but I don't know. I guess maybe just because I'm into basketball and sports games in general that are like of the Wii Sports style that I'm willing to pick this one up. Do you plan on giving this game a try? Let me know in the comments below. Now, something else we'll be able to give a try fairly soon, at least if you're going to go to this event, is Pokemon Legends ZA. So a few days ago, it was announced that you'll be able to experience the new real-time battling system in a series of trainer battles that take place during the after hours of Lumio City, chase Zygarde through the streets of Lumio City, and team up with Lucario to take on Rogue Mega Absol in an epic, action-packed showdown. Please note that you must reserve a Warp Pipe Pass to participate in this gameplay opportunity. Passes are first come, first served. This demo will be taking place in California, August 15th through 17th. Pokemon Worlds is where I believe it's taking place. And so even if you haven't gotten a ticket, we're going to be hearing more about this game during this weekend, learning more. People will be providing their impressions of this demonstration. We're finally going to see this game in motion, and not just like a trailer, but like actual extended gameplay here. And so that's going to be very interesting, learning more about this game, which technically, I mean, it's a mainline Pokemon game coming out this October. Like, that's a pretty big deal release, so we're about to get some very substantial news for this game. In other news, if you're looking for some fighting games on Nintendo Switch 2, another might be joining the fray fairly soon. So we got this interview from the Tekken 8 director, Katsuhiro Harada, and here he said, "It's an interesting option, and not totally off the table, but it would require a lot of work on the game to get it running on that hardware." He continues, "From a business standpoint, the Switch 2 is doing quite well, so it would be a very good business decision if you're trying to get a bigger audience, but the amount of work that would have to be done on the game makes it not a very easy decision. At this point in time, alas, there is nothing to announce." And so what's interesting about this is that last line there where he says, "At this point in time, stops for a second, alas, there is nothing to announce." So it sounded like, or it looks like he was about to say there are no plans. But then he stopped himself and simply said there is nothing to announce. So that's an interesting choice of words here. He stopped himself from saying there are no plans, which to me has me thinking he didn't want to say that because that would be not true, and instead simply said there is nothing to announce, which is fair. There is nothing to announce if they're not going to announce it yet. There are some people who believe this game is actually going to be announced fairly soon, and Bandai Namco has been known to support Nintendo quite well. They put on a lot of fighting games on Nintendo platforms, including the Switch, and we've even seen some on Switch 2, like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and we've seen other modern fighting games like Street Fighter running pretty well on Switch 2, so in my opinion, there's not really any real reason to think that Tekken 8 can't come, and as the director of Tekken 8 says himself, it would be a very good business decision. So I really think this is just a matter of time for this game, and it kinda seems like Katsuhiro Harada just slipped up a little bit here. And who knows, maybe it's one of those games that's supposed to be announced in a big direct in the not-so-distant future. We shall see. But on to the Zelda news. So, it's been discovered that there is an official The Legend of Zelda movie Twitter account. Now, on the surface, there's nothing too crazy going on here. All they say is The Legend of Zelda is coming exclusively to theaters 2027. But it's interesting that they now have an official account out there, and the movie's not coming out until 2027. We're in 2025. Could it be that they're setting up promotion for this movie sooner than later? Maybe they plan to start promoting this movie in 2026, which might make sense, especially if Nintendo is planning something bigger for Zelda's 40th anniversary, not too different from how Nintendo has handled Mario, and perhaps is also going to be handling Mario again for its 40th anniversary next month. Something weird about this, though, is that this account is only following Sony Pictures and PlayStation, and I just find that hilarious. They're not following Nintendo. Zelda belongs to Nintendo, however, Nintendo is working with Sony here on this live-action Zelda movie. So I just think it's funny that that's what's happened, but I think that has to do with this just being a Sony account that put this together. I assume eventually they'll also be following official Nintendo accounts as well. And no, The Legend of Zelda is not going third party. You're not going to be seeing any Zelda games come to PlayStation anytime soon, if ever. Something else interesting in regards to Zelda that was pointed out by Stealth on Twitter here is that Nintendo is sharing out this Ocarina of Time art on the Nintendo Today app. Now, I took a look at the Today app myself. I didn't see it, but I understand that they share different things to different people on different days, so maybe this will pop up in my feed sooner or later. But it's interesting that Nintendo is continually going back to sharing things about Ocarina of Time. Now, I understand the Today app in general is sharing details about just Nintendo history overall, but they keep circling back to Ocarina of Time. This is not the only time we've talked about Ocarina of Time showing up on the Today app. And it's also interesting that timing-wise, it happens right around the time we discover that there's an official Legend of Zelda movie account. If you've been keeping up with my theories on what's going on here, I do think that the live-action Zelda movie and the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake are tied to each other. And let me be clear here, and I've said this repeatedly, yet I still see people confusing what I'm saying. I am not saying they are going to make an Ocarina of Time Zelda movie. I do not think the story of the movie is going to have to do with Ocarina of Time. But what I'm trying to say here is that similar to Mario Wonder and other Mario games on Switch, they saw success in part because of the Mario movie, and vice versa. Hype for the Zelda movie is going to boost overall Zelda sales, and hype for the Zelda game is going to perhaps get more people eager to do more things Zelda, including watching the movie. That's really all it is. It's simple, but it's a big deal because it's going to lead to Nintendo being more successful, reaching a larger audience, selling more copies. We saw Nintendo do it with Mario. A lot of Mario games saw increased sales leading up to the Mario movie when the Mario movie came out, and they made sure to put out a mainline Mario game soon after with Mario Wonder. I think something similar is going to happen with the next Zelda release, but we know that they just finished Tears of the Kingdom a couple years ago, so there's no way they're going to have a full-on new Zelda game ready anytime soon. But what they can have ready relatively soon is an ambitious remake of Ocarina of Time, which we've been talking about in various videos. There are different interviews, there's a variety of different things I think are pointing to this idea. There appears to be a lot of excitement right now in regards to Ocarina of Time. I do think if they were to go back to this game, it would resonate with a very large audience. We have a lot of people, all of a sudden, by the way, this is all happening like today, different people announcing projects having to do with Ocarina of Time. Like here we have Devil Artemis, he's working on an Ocarina of Time fan animation here, and it looks pretty cool. So I'll have that link in the description below so you can check it out. He's working on it. We also have Ed Lothian here announcing that they just finished their Ocarina of Time diorama, which I'll also be sharing in the description below as well, but it looks pretty cool as well. It's the beginning part of the courtyard in Ocarina of Time for Hyrule Castle. So there's some cool products that people are working on right now in excitement for Ocarina of Time. Even the other day, for a video I made a few days ago, as you see here, this was actually retweeted by Dream Studio. Shout out to Dream Studio for retweeting my video. But I had actually used this statue of Link that they have made, which looks really cool, as part of the thumbnail, in talking about how Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment could be teasing things for Ocarina of Time. And I've already made that entire video, you can check it out, it came out a few days ago. But the basic point here is that when you take a look at Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the prior Hyrule Warriors game, looking at it in hindsight, there's actually many things that game teased for Tears of the Kingdom. And so I go over all of that and all the evidence and different things they could be hinting at in this video I put out a few days ago. However, there's something I missed that I'm kind of kicking myself for not bringing up, so I'm going to bring it up now. In Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, this latest Hyrule Warriors game, we got a trailer a couple weeks ago, right? Well, they gave us a face reveal for one of the sages. And that sage is the Gerudo sage. We see her face, but we also hear some dialogue from her, it looks like. And she says, "But you sought it from Hyrule of all places. This is madness." And so it seems like she's speaking to Ganondorf, and what this moment highlights here is how Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is going to be retelling events throughout the story that is told through the memories in Tears of the Kingdom. In other words, we are going to see more of the events that led to the calamity. All the different interactions amongst the Gerudo, how they were first working with Ganondorf, their leader, to attack Hyrule, and how they eventually went their own separate ways. But what's interesting looking at the memories in Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf had two companions, Kotaka and Koeme. They are the witches in their prime, but we know those witches are elderly in Ocarina of Time, and based off what's been told of us from the timeline, Tears of the Kingdom takes place before all these other Zelda games. And so it may be the case that they're setting things up here, as I talked more about in that video from a few days ago, which again, I'll have in the iCard you should check out. But what I didn't really focus on is that we need to learn more about Kotaka and Koeme as well. If we're going to be seeing more of the Gerudo and their interactions, we're going to see these characters and probably see them talk, get a little bit more lore about them and who they are and their personalities and where they're headed, which could be some interesting teasing and setting up for an Ocarina of Time remake a year or so later. So that's just something else to keep in mind, and again, if you don't understand my full point on how Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment could be teasing an Ocarina of Time remake, I talk about that in that other video. But it just seems like different things are being set up here in lead up to a big Zelda celebration. I don't know if they'll actually call it a Zelda 40th anniversary celebration, but if there's a movie and a big exciting game to come out within the next year or two, I think it's going to be a great time for Zelda fans. And in the meanwhile, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. But what do you all think? What do you make of all these latest news and theories? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.